Hi everyone, I apologize again for canceling our online meeting on Tuesday, but in this video I want to break down some important pieces of the book that we read last week that you can bring to your own research project once you get there, and then we'll move into the assignment, the Intro to Research assignment. So first, probably better than any book we've read thus far this semester, Novick explains how popular memory of the past is always connected to the present moment. Popular memory of the past often emerges and takes hold because of its utility for a particular group in the present. Right? So in other words, popular memory of the past is less about the search for truth, but for a usable past in our present. So think how that idea about popular memory has played out in the books that we've read so far. Think about how the first two books looked at corporations and movie studios that created interpretations of the past with money in mind. Their usable past was a past that could attract wide audiences, which often meant downplaying controversial issues. Think about Holloway's book, where he talked about how the middle-class African Americans created a usable past by erasing stories of discrimination. And we can see this usable past when Novick explains how the Holocaust became valuable because Americans thought it taught moral lessons that spoke to problems in their present. Right, so on page 242, Novick writes that while these are presented as lessons of the Holocaust, they seem to be not so much lessons drawn from the Holocaust as brought to it. These lessons reflect values and concerns that originated elsewhere, but that seem to be confirmed by contemplating the Holocaust. In any case, could be dramatically illustrated by grounding them in the Holocaust. Right? So what he's saying here is that Americans haven't been interested in looking at the Holocaust and then drawing lessons from it. Americans value the Holocaust because it can speak to moral values Americans already agree upon. Right? The Holocaust is valuable because it's an extreme example of what happens when people violate particular moral values. And so Novick speaks directly to a particular type of memory that he calls collective memory, right, which he defines as memories that suffuse group consciousness. So this basically means memories that help Jews see themselves as Jews, or memories that help African Americans see themselves as African Americans, or memories that help Americans see themselves as distinct from Canadians, right? So on page 170 he lays this out when he writes, "The most significant collective memories derive their power from their claim to express some permanent, enduring truth. Such memories are as much about the present as they are about the past, and are believed to tell us and others something fundamental about who we are now. They express or even define our identity. For a memory to take hold in this way, it has to resonate with how we understand ourselves, how we see our present circumstances, how we think about our future. And this relationship is circular. We embrace a memory because it speaks to our condition. To the extent that we embrace it, we establish a framework for our condition." And then he goes on to say, a corollary of this, of all of this, is that when a memory doesn't reflect our self-understanding and how we want others to see us, we marginalize it. We marginalize that memory. So again, he's reminding us that we remember certain things because about the past precisely because those memories are useful to us in the present. And so part of your job when you get to your research project this semester is to figure out why whatever memory that you're studying became useful. Right? And so this book is also valuable because it teaches us the importance of context in researching why particular memories of the past emerge at a particular point in time. Unfortunately, people generally don't leave paper trails that explain specifically why they remember the past in a certain way. And as historians, we have the challenge of figuring out why a Hollywood writer in the 1980s remembers a civil rights protest in the early 1960s in a particular way, or why a president in the 1990s portrays the 1920s in a particular way. One of the questions we have to ask is what is happening in the 1980s that might help us explain how that Hollywood writer is portraying the 1960s? Or what is happening in the 1990s that might help us explain how that president is portraying the 1920s? When I think about how Novick does that, goes through that process in his book, when he explains why the memory of the Holocaust was suppressed in the late 1940s and 1950s, he points to the rise of the Cold War. There's no obvious connection between Holocaust memory and the Cold War. Novick is doing what you're going to have to do in your own research projects, which is look for the contextual developments that might explain why certain parts of the past are emphasized or suppressed. He looks at how American officials were portraying the Soviet Union and how they also used World War II to paint the Soviet Union in a negative light. At the time, he knows that American officials were portraying the Soviet Union as a totalitarian state, and he sees that American officials were using Nazi Germany as a comparison to the Soviet Union, as another totalitarian state, in order to paint the Soviet Union as a great threat. And so then he has to ask, why would adding the Holocaust to that story hurt American officials' efforts? And he concludes that too much emphasis on the Holocaust would make the essential feature of Nazi Germany the murder of 6 million Jews. And this, of course, would also undermine the connections that American officials were trying to make between the Soviet Union and Germany. Right? It would complicate American officials' emphasis on totalitarianism as the defining features of the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. Think about some of the contextual developments he uses to explain why, in the 1970s, the Holocaust began to play suddenly such a central feature in American life. And he points to the declining threat of the Soviet Union as one factor, right? But the other contextual factor he points to is a fear among Jews that Jews were losing their collective identity. Historians have already written a lot about this anxiety over Jewish collective identity during this period, so Novick knows that that anxiety was there in the 1970s, right? And when he's trying to use context, he asks whether emphasizing the Holocaust might have benefited efforts to develop a collective Jewish identity, and he includes that preserving a collective Jewish identity was a motivating factor behind highlighting the importance of the Holocaust. And so, as you might have figured out by now, when we rely heavily on context, we're basically making educated guesses about what's influencing memory. And your challenge is to explain why a contextual development makes sense as an explanatory factor, right? That is something that I can help you with once we start diving in to your particular project. All right, so let's get into the research assignment that's due on Friday by 11:59 p.m. The goal of this assignment is simply to introduce you to some of the online databases that you can use to complete your research. And so the assignment asks you to assume that you're going to write about the Enola Gay controversy. So remember from the Mickey Mouse history book that we read, the Enola Gay controversy involved a proposed exhibit at the Smithsonian that was going to interpret why the United States used the atomic bomb in World War II. The Enola Gay, of course, was the plane that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And so the assignment asks you to find a newspaper article and a magazine article written while the controversy was going on. Then you're going to find a scholarly article and a scholarly book written about the Enola Gay controversy. And so, importantly, we're looking for academic stuff written after that controversy was over. And so you'll find the assignment description on Blackboard, and then you'll email me all of this stuff by Friday night. Okay, and so we know that the Enola Gay debate unfolded in 1994 and 1995, right, from our reading in Mickey Mouse history. So let's start by looking for a newspaper article. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to the library website. All right, so this is the library homepage. Then you're going to click on databases. All right, it's on the left side of the screen. And then in the search box, we're going to type newspapers. And so you'll see here a long list of historic newspapers. You have access to newspapers from black-run newspapers such as the Chicago Defender to the New York Times. Right? Many of these databases reach back into the 19th century. So I'm just going to click on the historic New York Times. Okay, and then when you click on that, I'll probably ask you to type in your Rater username and password and things like that. Okay. And so you have the choice now, so we're here in the New York Times database. You have the choice now whether to search the New York Times, or you can go back here to the top that says News and Newspaper Databases. Right, if you do that, you can actually search all of those historic newspapers that you saw on the library website screen here. Okay, and so that's, I think, the best way to search. The other great thing about this database is you can actually restrict the dates that you want to search. And so since we know that the Enola Gay controversy lasted from 1994 to 1995, we can search only those dates by going to this publication date here, okay, clicking on the scroll down menu and searching specific date range. Right, and then I'm going to put in 1994 to 1995. All right, and then I'm going to put in Enola Gay as a search term and click search. Right, and then we have a long list, 318 results here of, actually what I want to do is put in Enola Gay, maybe and Smithsonian to narrow it down, because we know that the place that this controversy happened was the Smithsonian. Okay, and so that'll get us to things specifically about the controversy here. Okay. So you'll see that the search produces 181 results here. And so let's just go to the first article here. Click on that. And so the assignment here asks you to actually email me a PDF copy. Okay, so you need a PDF here. All right, and so what you can do is go up here and click Download PDF. And then you'll click over here to this little page that looks like has a down-facing arrow, and then Save File. Okay. And then that will basically just send the PDF document to your downloads folder, and you'll find that and you'll email that to me with some of the other PDF downloads that you make for this assignment. Okay, and so easy enough. That's how you use the newspaper database through the library. Okay, so let's go to a great database for magazine articles. So you also need to find a popular magazine article that deals with the Enola Gay. And so we'll go back to the library homepage, click on Databases again. And this time in the search box, we're going to type in Academic Search Complete. And this is going to take us to a really powerful database. The next thing we want to do is type in Advanced Search. Okay, we'll use the same search terms, Enola Gay and Smithsonian. You can see we have other search modifiers here, just like the newspaper database. You can see that we can narrow down the dates. We'll type in 1994 to 1995 again. And then we'll click Search. And so what Academic Search Complete does is search a lot of different types of sources. And so since we want magazines, we're going to go down here to Source Type, and we're going to click Magazines. Okay, then we'll pop up. We have 34 different choices here. Click on any of these. So the better way to do it is click on the PDF full text. And then just like the newspaper database, click on the same page with the down-facing arrow. Say File. That file will be in your Downloads folder. The other great thing about this Academic Search Complete is you can also use this to find scholarly articles. So we can use the same database. You need scholarly articles. We can use the same database for that. We don't want magazines anymore, so we can click off of that. And so since we want scholarly articles written after this controversy ended, let's just put 1995 to 2017. All right, and then we'll come down and we'll click Academic Journals, which will give us only scholarly articles now. So you'll see the search update, and I'm just going to click on the first article here. And so again, for this assignment, it asks you to send me a PDF of a scholarly article. Same thing. We can click the download here. Right now, so now in your downloads folder, you have a scholarly article, a newspaper, and a magazine article ready for you. Now, I want to show you one more database here that offers you access to scholarly articles, and that database is called JSTOR, and it's simply spelled JSTOR. And it's another really powerful database. And once we get into this here, you'll see that it has a lot of the same sort of modifiers. So if we go to Advanced Search, we can go down here, click on Articles, and that will give us access to the scholarly articles that we want. It's not as good as searching magazines. This is really a place to go to search for scholarly articles. Okay, and so we can just put in the same search, Enola Gay and the Smithsonian, right? Down here, it has a similar modifier for date range. So we can go 1995, let's go 2017. You can see that it produces another kind of big cache of documents here. And so you might ask why the library needs Academic Search Complete if JSTOR has produced, I think it actually produced more articles here than Academic Search Complete did. Why does it need both? And the answer is that these two databases actually compete against each other, and the databases have access to many of the same journals, but they also have bought exclusive access to certain journals. So for example, you might be able to access one journal on Academic Search Complete that you wouldn't be able to access on JSTOR and vice versa. And even crazier, you might be able to access a journal's articles up to 2010 maybe on JSTOR, and then access to the same journal articles from 2011 to the present only on Academic Search Complete. So it's nice to actually search both of those databases and not just rely on one. Okay, so let's talk about how to find scholarly books on a topic. Okay, and so sometimes I like to use just a free and easy database called Google Books, and you probably used this before. And so I'm going to type in Enola Gay and Smithsonian. Okay, and the reason why I like to start my searches with Google Books rather than going to the library catalog is the library catalog database only searches the title, author, and any keywords that librarians include. So your search words might miss important books in the library database, whereas Google Books, if they have access to it, searches the entire text of a particular book. So, Enola Gay and Smithsonian search terms probably won't produce the amount of results in the library catalog as it will in Google Books. Okay, so what I like to do here is I find some good books. We can say Enola Gay, this first book, Enola Gay and the Smithsonian Institution. All right, and so now we know that this might be a good book that we want to look at. The next step here is to try to figure out how we get access to it through the library, right? And so that means we have to go back to the library database. And then I'm going to click over here on Advanced Search. And then I'm going to click Library Catalog. And so what that will do basically is it'll tell us whether this book is actually in the library or not. Okay, and so I'm going to type in, let's see, remind myself what the title of the book is, the Enola Gay and the Smithsonian Institution. Okay, and we come down here and we find out that the library does have the book. And so the assignment for this, we can't get a PDF of this, and so what I'm asking you to do in the email, what you'll do in the email is you'll send me the PDFs for the articles. And then what I want you to do when you write out the email, in the text portion of the email, I just want you to include the author, the title, and this is the library catalog number right here, right? This D767.25. What you need to do is just copy and paste that and put that into the email so I know that you kind of found a book that's actually in the Texas Tech Library. Okay, so for those of you who live outside of Lubbock, many of you probably already know that you can get books from the Texas Tech Library. The library will actually mail you books from the library in Lubbock. And so in case this is the first you've heard of this, let me show where you go for this on the library database, or the library website. Go back here. So what you want to do is simply click Document Delivery on the left side of the library page. Right, you'll sign in. And what you'll do is just you'll click Book, and you'll put in all of the information for the book. And when I scroll down here, for me, it doesn't have an option to send it to my house because I'm not a distance student. But when you come here, if you don't see an option to send this to your house, it simply means that you just need to update your information. You can do that by going to the Tools option here and change user information. And right here on Status, just gives you the option to be a TTU distance patron. And so if you're a distance student and you don't see that option when you go to the document delivery service, check your status and make sure that you're actually in there as a TTU distance patron, so the library, you have access for the library actually sending you books to your house. It's a great service that the library has. You hopefully also know that you can have access to books that aren't in the Texas Tech Library. And so if you find something that you think might be really valuable, Tech doesn't have it, Tech will, by going through this document delivery service, you can order a book that's not in the Texas Tech Library. Texas Tech will actually get the book from a different library and send it to you on loan. Okay, and so know that that is an option for you, but also know that it takes some time to process that request and send it to you. So make sure that you don't do these things at the last minute as you're doing your research project. If you're a distance student, you're going to rely on this service. Try to get those books as early as you possibly can. Okay, and so hopefully, this video is giving you kind of a nice little overview of the ways that you can search some of the easy library databases that I hope that you're going to rely on for your research project. Obviously, it's not going to be on the Enola Gay, but whatever you actually choose to do. And so later this week, what I'm going to do is post all of the potential research projects that you can choose from. Okay, and so after you're done doing this research assignment that's due on Friday, which I want you to focus on early next week, is choosing a particular research project. And so your assignment next week is going to be to identify the project that you want to complete once that's up. And then there's going to be a short proposal assignment that you'll see online, which is simply starting to think about what sort of sources that you might use and things like that. So it'll be another kind of really short assignment, much like this one, where you just kind of tell me exactly which project that you've identified among the topics that I'm going to put on Blackboard later this week. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you're still confused, about how to find some of these sources or about the assignment itself, please email me, and if I can answer your questions via email, I'll do that. If we need to do some sort of Skype session or something, I'm happy to walk you through anything. All right, so don't hesitate to email me. Good luck.